All opposed? Minutes approved. Do we have any council members here present today? We appreciate their service and always appreciate it when they're here to speak. Do we have any items for deferral or withdrawal?
Actually, right before that, at the request of the commission, we added this monthly report with October 2025 metrics.
Excellent.
So for pre-applications, there were 12. Permits issued administratively, 54. Revised permits, 16. And a total of 174 inspections conducted. All right. So moving on to items for deferral and withdrawal. All right, items for deferral and withdrawal include on page 3, item number, sorry, it's not on page 3. On page 4, item number 7, which is 718 Fatherland Street, is to be deferred until notification requirements may be met. In addition, we have item number 10, which is on page 5, 1203 Greenfield Avenue. And that was at the request of the applicant. And finally, item number 16 on page 6, 1018 Bate Avenue, and that is deferred until notification requirements have been met.
Do you want to go ahead and go into the consent items?
Yeah, sure. So next we have consent as noticed to applicants. If you are approved for a preservation permit today and you are not the contractor, please know that it is your responsibility to make sure that the contractor has a copy of the preservation permit before beginning work. The preservation permit includes items that require final approval and inspection requirements. The final drawings are part of the preservation permit. Following the preservation permit will save you time and money, as enforcement of violations can sometimes be a lengthy and expensive process. The preservation permit is not a building permit. No work can begin without the appropriate review and approval by the Metropolitan Department of Codes Administration. Now to the consent items. Items on the consent agenda will be read aloud to determine if opposition is present. If there is opposition present, the item will be heard at the end of the meeting in the order in which they are listed on the agenda. If no opposition is present, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. All right, starting on page 3, item number 2 at 1212 Fatherland Street. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. On page 4, item number 3, 1625 Shelby Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay. This item will be on the consent agenda. Also on page 4, item number 4, 900 North 16th Street. We have had a request for this item to be removed from the consent agenda. So this item will be heard on the agenda, or at the end of the agenda. Continuing on with consent, item number 5, 1514 Forest Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay. This item will be on the agenda to be heard. So, all right. And then still on page 4, we have item number 6, 116 South 13th Street. This item will not be included on the consent agenda, so this item will be on the agenda to be heard. Item number 7, 718 Fatherland Street. Is there anyone here? Oh, it's been deferred, sorry. My bad. All right. On page number 5, item number 9, 305 South 10th Street. Oh, sorry. Has that been? No, item number 9, 305 South 10th Street. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 10 has been deferred. Item number 11, 824 South Douglas Avenue has already been removed from the consent agenda, so it will be heard. Item number 12, 1713 Ashwood Avenue. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. On page 6, item number 13, 2511 Essex Place. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 14, 2413 Fairfax Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 15, 2502 Westwood Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. 1018 Batesman deferred. Item number 17 will be heard. Okay. All right, on page 7, item number 19, 2908 Belmont Boulevard. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? All right, this item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 20, 1104 Lawrence Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 21, 1323 3rd Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 22, 1814 4th Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay, this item will be on the consent agenda. On page 8, item number 23, 136 Blackburn Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay, this item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 24, 249 Lauderdale Road. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay, this item will be on the consent agenda. And item number 25, 226 Lauderdale Road. Is there anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay, this item will be on the consent agenda. All right, I am now going to read through all the consent items as legal information. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements are met, please be advised to seek your own independent legal counsel. All right, so starting on page 3. It's not, I believe it's not on the consent.
It's not going to be heard today?
It will be heard today. So, yeah, sorry, it was already not on the consent agenda. Sure. All right, so items that will be on the consent agenda. On page number 3, item number 2 at 1212 Fatherland Street, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 4, item number 3, 1625 Shelby Avenue, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. All right, on page 5, item number 9, 305 South 10th Street, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. Also on page 5, item number 12, 1713 Ashwood Avenue. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 6, item number 13, 2511 Essex Place. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 14, 2413 Fairfax Avenue. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 15, 2502 Westwood Avenue. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 7, item number 19, 2908 Belmont Boulevard. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 20, 1104 Lawrence Avenue. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 21, 1323 3rd Avenue North. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item 22, 1814 4th Avenue North. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 8, item 23, 136 Blackburn Avenue. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item 24, 249 Lauderdale Road. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. And item 25, 226 Lauderdale Road. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. And also on page 3, item 1, to approve administrative items issued for the prior month.
So you've heard the consent agenda revised. Do I hear a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, seeing no objection from the audience, move to approve the consent agenda as just read.
So a motion by Commissioner Mosley. Do I hear a second? Second by Commissioner Williams. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We appreciate your patience with us as we go through this. Sometimes governmental proceedings move so fast, it's hard to keep up, and we have had people in the past that had something slip by, so we try to go with deliberateness so that everybody is on the same page with this. So thank you. Okay. Next item, Melissa.
All right.
Okay, first up, can everybody hear me? First up is 900 North 16th Street, a circa 1932 brick craftsman bungalow that contributes to the historic character of the Eastwood Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. The applicant is proposing a rear addition and an outbuilding. As part of the project, the applicant proposes to demolish the non-contributing carport and garage. The proposed addition and outbuilding meet all base zoning setbacks, but there's just 9 feet of separation between the two structures. The design guidelines state that there should be at least 20 feet between the back of a house in addition and any outbuilding on site. Staff finds that a reduced separation between the proposed addition and outbuilding meets the design guidelines in this instance because the lot is 150 feet deep with a particularly deep front setback of approximately 40 feet to the front porch and between 46 to 51 feet from the front property line to the front wall of the house. This Metro map shows how the lot's front setback is deeper than the others on the block. Moreover, the lot's front and rear property lines are angled. In addition, the addition's footprint and the outbuilding footprints, both of those are significantly less than what they could be under the design guidelines. So for all of these reasons, staff finds that the proposed separation of just 9 feet is appropriate on this lot. There's an existing curb cut and parking area off of Sumner Avenue. Staff recommends that the parking area and curb cut be removed since the new garage will be accessed via the alley. Here is the proposed addition, which is 1 1/2 stories in scale and is no taller or wider than the historic house. Staff finds that overall its height, scale, setback materials, etc. meet the design guidelines. It has a footprint of about 416 feet, which is much less than the footprint of the house, which is over 1,500 square feet. So overall, staff finds that the addition meets the design guidelines. And here is the proposed outbuilding. It also meets all the design guidelines for height, scale, materials, et cetera. Because this is a corner lot, there is the requirement that the maximum height of the outbuilding is no taller than the height of the house, and it does meet that guideline. So here's a rendering of the proposed project. So in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the outbuilding in addition with the conditions seen there on the screen. Happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward? If you could state your name for us, we'd appreciate it. There you go, you got it.
Yes, I'm Paul John Boulevard, the architect for representing Molly Frank and Craig Haley.
Great. Any questions for the applicant or any statement? Are you good with all the conditions that are listed here?
Yes, that's correct. And the main constraint that we asked to go less than 10 feet was just to get a car in the garage. And we have that a steer angle that's on the alley, which we're trying to push it as far back to the alley and as far away from the house.
Great. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Open public hearing. Are there people that wish to speak for or against this project? Closed public hearing. Commissioners? Discussion?
I think this is a good example of the discretion we have in the guidelines, and I think Melissa laid out a good case for why we can give lenience on the separation between the two, and I'm in favor of the application.
I think I'll just add on it's been pointed out, but the angles and, having the ability to, it's an improvement to not have a curb cut on the street and to use the alley as it was intended. So I think in that regard, and for the other items that have been mentioned here, jamming this thing right up against the alley would make it not terribly easy to park a car in there. And so I think, again, as Commissioner Price says, using our discretion here is, it's appropriate and I feel like meets the guidelines.
Do I hear a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
With regard to 900 North 16th Street, I move for approval with staff conditions.
Is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Cashin. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Thanks.
Am I on? Can you hear me now? Hello? No, turn it on. It was on. The light's on now, but you can't hear me? Hello? All right, I'll shout. Okay, next up is 1904 Russell Street. It's an application for infill on a 65-foot wide lot at 904 Russell. Staff has issued a demolition permit for this non-contributing house in the Laughlin Springs East End Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. The majority of historic houses on this block are approximately 30 to 32 feet wide, but sit on 50-foot wide lots. The very widest historic house on the block is 37 feet wide at the front and sits next door on a 70-foot wide lot. Given this context, staff had recommended a maximum appropriate width of approximately 35 feet for the 65-foot wide lot. The applicant is asking for a proposed width of 45 feet for the main massing. Although 12 feet of this massing is pushed back approximately 8 feet from the front facade, it is all 1 1/2 stories and under a side gabled roof. A screened porch steps out an additional 5 feet, but is only 1 story and well pushed back. The front setback is appropriate to the context. The proposed right side setback is 5 feet, and the proposed left side setback is approximately 8 feet. While the setbacks meet base zoning and the houses to either side are sited on opposite sides of their lots, allowing adequate spacing between them and this proposed house, the overall width is still too wide for the context, even given this wider lot. The applicant is proposing to retain a curb cut and driveway from Russell Street, including a parking pad directly in front of the house. The guidelines require driveways from the front to continue at least to the rear of the house, rather than creating front yard parking. But the proposed width of the house does not allow for a driveway along the side elevation. Because this lot has alley access, staff recommends that the driveway from Russell Street be removed or extended at least to the rear of the building. No front yard parking pad should be included. Here are the side elevations. Staff finds the height, materials, and rhythm of spacing to be appropriate, but because the width needs to be significantly altered, requiring a redesign, staff is recommending disapproval of the project. Staff recommends disapproval of the infill, finding it does not meet sections, I'm not going to read all the sections, finding it doesn't meet the guidelines for massing, setbacks, and for parking. And I know the applicant is here. Do you have questions for me? You did also receive, I believe, 2 letters of support for this project.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Is the applicant here?
My name is Van Pond. I am at 2929 Sidco Drive. I'm the architect for this project. I'm going to try and be brief. You all have seen letters from neighbors. This is an exceptionally large lot in the historic context of the street. So the northern side of the street, if you go to page 2 of your staff report, Jenny. That's great. You can see the northern side of the street, of Russell Street, is fairly consistent 50-foot wide lots. And this does yield a generally like 33, 34-foot wide average house. Now, 1911 Russell is 41 feet wide. This is on the opposite side of the street. But most of the houses are that 30 to 36 feet wide, depending. And the lots are very consistent. If you will look on the south side of the street here, you can barely kind of see the original lot lines of development. So these were 50-foot lots. They matched across. And at some point or another, they were reconfigured. So we sit on the original historic lot, we sit on lot 3 and 4 on the block. The house that staff mentions in its recommendation is the widest house on the block, is 1906 Russell. It is 41 feet wide. It has a sister property at 1911. They're both 41 feet wide, and though 1906 Russell is on a 70-foot wide lot, it was not built on a 70-foot wide lot. It was built on a 50-foot wide lot. So again, kind of that historic pattern. That's about 80% of the lot face is its front elevation. And then it varies on the other lots to 67, 68%. Our strategy when we got the staff recommendation on guiding the design was to present the house at a width at the front setback that is consistent with the other houses on the street. So we pulled the front porch forward. It's 7 feet deep. The front porch is 32 feet wide. The front wall of the house is actually, inside that it's 24 feet wide. So you'll see this front gable on this elevation. And then we pushed the wider mass, which we feel like a 65-foot wide lot in a context of 50-foot wide lots. It's almost 30% wider, should have some ability to breathe. Now, the other piece of this is we also followed staff's recommendation for front yard setback. That's 34 feet on this lot. Historic context on the north side of the street is about 27 feet. You all have approved things like that before. So we aren't getting advantage of, we've got a wider lot and we're getting no advantage at all. And so that feels like there should be some ability in an exceptional situation for you all to give us some consideration. That being said, it's really hard to look at a front elevation like this and say, oh, well, this is much wider than the rest of these, and it looks flat. So I brought toys. I did get through the metal detector. There's no metal in it. But I'm not going to say this is my best work ever. Because this is what happens when I have to build a model. Okay. And it's probably starting to pass around.
Do you mind if I pass it around?
Yes. If it breaks, it's my fault, it's not theirs. So we built this model because it's hard to give a three-dimensional explanation of a project like this. The left-hand side from the street, we did step back 15 feet from the front edge of the front porch. The front porch is a one-story, 11-foot tall eave. So we did step that back to mask the width. There's also a major magnolia tree here that the owners are going to keep, and I know that that is a fungible piece of work in that tree dies or tornado, heaven forbid, anything like that could happen. But the intent is to keep that, again, that's shown on the site plan. You can see it's pretty massive. We really did work hard to bring a 33-foot wide house to the front of the lot and push back other mass. We wanted to preserve as much backyard as possible, so it's either this way or that way. We stretch one way or the other. If we had a reduced setback in the front, we were even with 1906, we'd have more opportunity to make this a thinner house. As far as the driveway goes, the owner has said that's fungible to them. If we wanted to do a driveway, we're happy to look at that going all the way back to the house, but we don't have to have the front parking. We were just keeping it because it was there. I think I'm going to stop talking and let you all ask questions if you have any.
I have a question for Ms. Pond.
The existing house there is, I believe, shown in the blue outline, right?
Yeah, it's 54 feet wide and about 18 feet tall. It's really pretty, but we're taking it down. There you go. Front-facing garage. Great.
Other questions? Anything else? Thank you for the model. It helps for us to be able to see that. It's good.
Glad that's helpful.
Thank you.
Band-Aid.
Sorry. Thanks. Thank you. Open public hearing. Are there people that wish to speak for or against this project? Closed public hearing. Commissioners?
The model is very helpful. Appreciate the applicant providing that. And I'm always, or not always, but one of the parts of the guidelines where, not contrasting greatly is something that is meaningful, I think. And of course, there's a considerable amount of leeway there. A narrower house here, just based on the fact that something could happen to the house to the left, but there's quite a gap between them, and a narrower house here doesn't really help with the rhythm along the street. There's definitely, the wider that gap is, it sort of, a tooth is going to be missing there. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm compelled by the applicant's argument with respect to some grace in the width of this as compared to the rhythm along the street. It's sensible to me. I do, however, I'm conflicted about if the curb cut is to remain, and it sounds like the applicant wants that, then the driveway needs to move down the side of the house to meet that. So we really can't have both of those things, and certainly the parking in the front is something we've moved away from in every previous application that I can think of. So those two things are not exactly congruent in terms of approving the application as submitted, in my mind. Did that make sense at all? I'm interested in other commissioners' take on it as well.
Well, and one of the things, looking at the drawing and the model, we tend to think about the width of the houses as setting the rhythm on the street. Well, in reality, the other element that sets that rhythm on the street is the space between the houses. And I think that when you look at both the drawing and the model, that space between the houses feels excessive, and if the house was smaller, it would be even more so. So, and like the missing tooth is sort of the way I felt about it. Other comments?
Yeah, I agree with both of those comments, and I also appreciate that it's taking an even wider non-contributing house and narrowing that width to help even more. So I feel like that's could be part of the calculus here. I appreciate that the applicant's willing to get rid of the front yard parking, because that would be a condition that I would stick with also if this were to be approved, which I think I would support the applicant's the application.
So, Commissioner Price, along those lines, if the curb cut is desired to be kept by the applicant, then there would need to be a narrowing of the house to get the drive to move past. Those two things seem part and parcel, like they're connected. Without respect to I'm in agreement that the front parking is something we're not moving towards. So as submitted, it's problematic, or it seems problematic to me unless the applicant withdraws the curb cut to get the drive to move beyond the front of the house.
I guess I would just wonder, do we need to, is it part of this application that the curb cut has to go or not, or do we even need to worry about that? I mean,
I think based on the staff report, the guidelines allow for the curb cut as long as the drive goes straight past the house to the back of the house and that there's no parking in the front. So that would be in conformance with the guidelines. So I think that would be acceptable if the owner wanted to do that. But I'm with Commissioner Mosley. I mean, we don't approve in these areas parking in the front yard. So.
And something that goes along with that, the applicant mentioned that goes along with that, that's worthy of some discussion here, is that if this, then that, in that scenario, they're delimited in the staff's comments by where the front setback is presently. And if the house gets narrower, are commissioners acceptable for that to be moved or adjusted? I'm thinking of giving the applicant guidance. We can't rule on something we don't see, but there seems to be quite the connection between all these pieces, and without seeing it, I'm wary of saying, if this and you do that and on this condition, then it's okay. That could be, I think it can be accomplished, but are we comfortable providing that level of guidance to this application?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just with the reasoning of the former commissioners on, the size, or just with the missing tooth element, I think that is an interesting piece that you brought up. And yeah, I mean, again, I would say I'm comfortable with that part, but obviously not the front parking. So it's, to me, I don't know how to make, I'm not going to make the motion, and I don't know how, but, okay with the general massing of the home and the width, but the curb cut parking pad, to me, or maybe not the curb cut, but the parking pad obviously has to go. And if they really want a drive and a curb cut, then they have to come back with a redesign that's a skinnier building. And then we have to see that and go with it. So I don't know how to make that motion or that guidance, but I think that's what y'all are saying. And I'm in agreement with that. But again, we don't know what that is. So if that's a goal of theirs as a homeowner, as an architect, then that would be, they'd have to come back with a new something that then we would have to debate and vote on. Right.
Not to interrupt, but
Good.
We'd like to come, when we're recommending disapproval, we like to come prepared with some conditions in case we feel like the commission is leaning towards approval. So maybe this would be a moment to interject what we were thinking.
Yes, absolutely.
So we would recommend conditions, the standard condition regarding approval of materials, a condition regarding utilities, and then in this case, we would recommend the removal of the curb cut and front yard parking. Thought I heard the applicant say that was something they were open to, but maybe we can invite him back to discuss that. Sure. I mean, you can pass it whether he's open to it or not. But, but that's what I heard, but maybe we should check with him. To you.
Mr. Bond, do you want to address that?
Mr. Chair, do we need to reopen are we required to reopen to hear from the applicant, or?
You can.
Yeah.
I have to reopen the public hearing? I think we can just ask the applicant, can't we, to address the commission? Yeah, all right, okay.
So either way, the owner is open to giving up the curb cut, or we're also willing to look at reducing the width of the house by 3 feet, which would then allow the driveway to slide back. But I think given the discussion we're having right now, we would abandon the curb cut and not have parking. I would love some thought on maybe we get to move the house forward a little bit. If we did that, maybe halfway between the two front porches on the left and the right, but that's not a requirement for us. We will give up the curb cut.
Okay, good. Commissioner Mosley, does that give you enough room for a motion?
Sure. Sir, any further discussion?
The last point that the applicant just asked for in terms of the setback and altering that based on this decision, I'm open to somehow working that into the motion, or it might need to come back to us entirely. I'm not sure.
I think you could include a condition saying that the front setback should be halfway between the houses on
Okay.
either side.
I'd
That's pretty
be
standard.
willing to do that. Go ahead. Please. God. Okay. On 1904 Russell Street, I move for approval of the application with the condition that the parking pad and curb cut be removed and the front setback be reduced to halfway between the two neighboring houses.
And Jenny's standard conditions, right?
And the standard condition, other conditions with utilities and materials.
Can I offer a clarifying question both for the applicant and the staff is that we're measuring front setback to basically the front of the porch, not to the massing of the house, or that's considered where the front setback from which it would be measured?
Such a good question.
I'm going to punt on that one.
Yes, and I think it's a fair question. There's obviously, if you look at those front porches and you look at the front wall of the house, there is some wiggle on what you might consider to be appropriate. We thought this was appropriate as it matches the houses on either side. And then the two houses, we're maybe getting in the weeds here, but you asked. The two houses to the right of this one are both infill. This one to the left is a historic house pulled forward. The other houses further to the left are historic houses that are pushed back a little bit. So this one that comes the most forward is a little bit of an outlier, which is why we thought this one was okay pushed back. But I do think we could take that front wall and maybe split the difference in the house to the right and that, not the furthest front, but the front wall behind where the stairs are. Does that make sense? Where the front door is on that house, kind of split that difference. And I think that would be, does that make sense to everyone, splitting the front walls? Okay. I think I
Wasn't this
understand.
discussion only if they
The applicant
wanted to
understands.
lessen the width of the building for the front setback? Wasn't that the
No, it's
request?
because they're willing to kick the parking pad. So overall, we're getting a better project.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Basically, they can have more backyard this way, so.
Excuse me, I have a question. Where's the tree? I mean,
That's right.
I'm for saving the tree.
I think in lieu of opening the public hearing, I think we can make a statement that the plans show and the applicant has stated that the tree occurs in the front yard close to the street and is to remain. Is that correct? Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And the discussion, the measurement of how the setback is determined is sort of part of the record and part of the discussion. Great. Second.
Second from Commissioner Mosley. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. Project approved. Thank you all. Thank you.
All right. The next is a request to replace all the historic siding on the house at 1015 South Douglas Avenue. This house was built circa 1923 and does contribute to the historic character of the Waverly Belmont Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. Back in March of this year, the commission approved an addition and outbuilding on the site, as well as partial demolition of some openings on the front and sides, since there was evidence that the openings were altered when the house was converted into a duplex sometime after 1957. So this photo is from April 2025, before work started on the addition, and also before the vinyl siding that was on the house was removed. So one of the conditions of approval for the addition was that full siding replacement shall be reviewed once the vinyl siding is removed. The vinyl siding was removed in July of this year, and staff performed an initial assessment on site on July 22nd. At that time, staff noted damage on the first 2 rows of siding above the foundation and around some window openings, mainly on the side elevations, that needed to be replaced. There were some nail holes present where the vinyl was attached, but there were no other areas that appeared to be soft or exhibited moisture damage or decay. Overall, staff found that the original siding was in good condition and recommended repair, including patching of nail holes and replacement of those select areas. We have some additional slides from that visit. I believe this is the left side, kind of near a rear addition that was removed. And then this is the right side, which faces South 11th or 11th Avenue South. Since the applicant did not agree with staff's assessment and stated he would prefer to replace all of the siding, staff recommended at that time that the applicant submit an application to come before the commission. However, staff did have further communication and further site visits and assessments. So since the July 22nd visit, there have been additional ones, including this photo, which was taken, I think, September 20th, 23rd. And the only change that staff noted at the time was that, that's still July, was that the boards above the foundation, so that trim board had been removed, which we had discussed before, and that would have been fine to remove with a plan to repair the rest. So fast forward, when the application was submitted for this meeting, staff went back out to get updated photos and found that additional siding was removed in the dormers as well as around some of the windows. A new window had been added, which you see right here. It's addressed in the staff recommendation. Staff does recommend approval of the new windows installed, given that it's on a side elevation near a midpoint. So in previous communication, the applicant indicated that the siding on the dormers needed to be replaced in order to install flashing for new roofing. Staff indicated that replacement of the siding in the dormers, along with those previously identified areas around the windows above the foundation, would constitute partial replacement, which would not be reviewed, but still full replacement would be reviewed. So even with the siding that's already been removed, staff finds that there are still sections that are in good condition and would recommend that the original siding be salvaged and used on the more highly visible facades. So in this case, the front, as well as that side elevation facing 11th, to the extent possible, with priority given to the front facade, since the historic siding is a significant architectural feature of the house. Since the commission does not review the replacement of windows or re-roofing within the Waverly Belmont Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay, the siding is the primary material that the commission has required to be retained. On the left side elevation and on some small portions of the rear that are not have not been removed to accommodate the addition, staff recommends that the replacement siding match the reveal and mitered corner detail of the historic siding. And furthermore, staff, since the historic siding is attached directly to the diagonal sheathing, and the project also includes interior demo, staff would recommend a shoring plan be submitted before the preservation permit is revised, and that a shoring inspection be completed before the original siding is removed. So in conclusion, staff recommends approval of the partial demolition request with 3 conditions. 1, that the original siding be salvaged and used on the front and side wall facing 11th to the extent possible. 2, for areas where siding is not used, wood or smooth cement fiberboard siding with mitered corners and a reveal to match the original siding be used. And 3rd, that a shoring plan be submitted before the permit's revised, and that there be an inspection confirming that the building's been shored before that siding's been removed. So with those conditions, staff recommends approval. We do have the applicants here. Also, our inspector, Scott Keckley, was the main person doing these site evaluations, so he's here as well if you have any questions, and then happy to answer anything too.
Melissa, I have a question related to approved, recommendations on siding replacement in the rear where it's not salvaged. There are manufacturers who specifically deal in mitered corner siding, and if you just take hardy board, I guess it's possible to miter it. I would say it's not exceptional or even good, but is there a requirement that it be specifically designed for that purpose or no?
I think before, when staff was considering how to write this recommendation, we did look, and it seemed that these cement fiberboard products, it's an option.
Sure.
But it didn't go into detail as to how it's done, and I understand your point that maybe it can be done, but it may not look very good. But I think there's an argument for not needing the mitered corners on the rear 2 corners.
Okay, I just, want some clarity there, what we're asking of the applicant, and then what we're going to see in an inspection. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Applicant, would you give us your name?
Hi, my name's Jason Griffith. I'm the owner and the contractor. I haven't. I need to keep going. All right. Good afternoon. Like Melissa said, we're asking for full siding replacement on the fact that of the condition of the siding, of not agreeing that it's in good shape, like they say. When I bought this house, it was, like she said, had vinyl siding on it. We didn't even know there was siding underneath it. So as we went through the permit process, like she said, we were asked to remove it, to review it. The first kind of the problem I have with that is if it's already been replaced, we don't even know it's there. Why are we held to keeping what's under there that nobody knew was there? But upon further inspection, the siding, the reason I wanted to bring the dormer siding off is because they had put so the vinyl siding on it was the only thing keeping this weatherproof at all. I mean, it has no flashing anywhere. The roof flashing was on the outside of the original flashing as far as on the dormers. So I was like, and when you look at the pictures of the dormers, the siding goes from 0 from the top board to the bottom. So that's why we asked to remove that, to flash it correctly. And our initial ask on the siding to remove is because when they allowed us to take the band boards off, or the bottom plate, all the band boards, I would say 90% of them were rotten. We had to replace every one of them. So there was evidence of water intrusion from up above. If you look, let me find a page here. If you look on page 3, you'll see on the front left corner of the house, all that wood was rotten in there. You can see the OSB that we replaced above the band board. It doesn't look like much, but we can't completely assess it. We can from the inside. There's a little more, but if it wasn't just completely rotten, we had to leave it. We didn't want to. And you can also see evidence of how dry and brittle this siding is. We didn't just go in there and just rip it all loose. It's been there forever. It's dry. You try to take it off, it cracks. And if you go back, before we just get on the pages to address that, let me go here. You can go to page 11 and 12. I would bet there's 1,000 nails in there, haven't counted them. They nailed the siding straight to the wood, nothing else. And that's how brittle that shows that siding is. It has cracks all the way through it. I would say 60% of the boards that are left right now. No, there's not hardly any on the back. They're also suggesting that we take the siding off to use on page number 4. Taking this siding off to put on the front and the side. First of all, it's not enough. Second of all, you can see on the left side, you see the back where the window is, there's no siding. That whole area was rotten, completely rotten out. We had to reframe it, put everything back there, and I believe the siding was patched in that area. There's some of her pictures are evidence of that. And the same way where the two middle windows are. And then you see on the front right there, this is the east side of the house where the OSB is there fixing that. And you see evidence in the middle under the third window from the front of the siding broke. Because when we were taking this off, we were trying to preserve it in case we had to use it in the future, but it's really brittle, and you can see that as the nail holes. So they didn't do it any favors by siding it like that. And I don't know, I guess it was a different time that they allowed vinyl siding to even be put over this. So going back there, there's no flashing on the corners. There's no flashing on the butts. There's nothing. So it's had, the only reason this siding is not fell off and the house is rotten down is because there's been vinyl siding that has shielded it for the last 20 years. So page number 1, this is the front of the house. This house had been converted to a duplex. A house with an apartment. I don't know if they call it a duplex, but the front door's in the center where the two right windows are. That's why that type R right there that you can see going to the ground, that was a door. So we didn't rip any of that off. We did have to reframe that window opening there to accept that. You can see at the top to the right of those front two right windows, it was just a patch in the siding. You see the square underneath there. Same thing over on the left. You can't see it in that picture, but it's under the porch. So that's damaged. Around the door, it had an oversized door that wasn't historic. It had a 2-light door on it. Not a fan of that. And then that siding doesn't reach. So to make that front right, if you go to page 2, we've highlighted in red what just about the requirement. Everything that we've highlighted in red is either cracked, these are not close enough to see all the cracks in them, but they're either cracked, damaged. Some of the ends on the bottom right there are just rotten off of the siding.
Mr. Griffith, we've got 3 minutes left.
Okay.
We'll have Scott Keckley come up and talk about his inspection. If you
Okay.
want to reserve a couple of minutes for your
Yes.
rebuttal,
Yes, I do.
it might be better than
I wasn't
running out
watching
of
the
time.
Sorry. I was on a roll.
Just to be clear, the rebuttal option is to public comment, not to staff comments.
Oh, okay.
Well, if I'm reserving 2 minutes, can I reserve 2 my time left to answer any questions from them.
You can reserve it for public comment, or you could go ahead and answer questions now.
Let me see here. I'd like to say just a little bit more, and then I'll stop. I'll reserve a little bit at the end. I've remodeled several historic houses in historic Belmont, 12 South area. I try to work, and I've always worked well with the historic. I try to bring them back to the best new standard that I can bring them within historic limits. That's what I'm trying to do here. This wouldn't be preserving historic. This would be preserving a house that people would say, why couldn't you fix the siding on it? So I'll rest with that.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Scott, would you like to give us, should we do Scott's comments first and then public hearing, or public hearing first?
So at this point, probably the best thing is public comment, and then if there is any, then he has the opportunity to rebut, and then Scott's information could be part of your deliberation.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, good. Open public hearing. Are there people that wish to speak for or against this project? Close public hearing. Open for discussion among commissioners or questions for Scott?
Scott, do you have any thoughts to share on this house in how it compares to other similar ones you might have seen that might come before us? Or what are your thoughts here, if you have any to offer?
Nothing prepared. We did look at it several times, and as they removed more, there was more old rot toward the bottom of the walls, the rim boards, some of the decking, everything toward the bottom of the house, I don't know how else you would word the original siding shall be salvaged to the extent possible. No, I don't have much to say besides that.
Scott, in looking at this, there certainly are some, with taking into account window trim that has to be applied, it seems there's a lot of patch and match work that would have to be done if more of the siding were left as is. I guess the miter in those corners takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I think the recommendation for mitered corners and the reveal to match the original siding is to preserve the look.
Sure.
Now that the windows have been replaced, obviously they're, the windows that they took out and the trim around those windows I don't think was original. They
Correct.
were vinyl windows from 70s or 80s.
Right.
You see one like bubble window in there, So maybe the new windows aren't centered perfectly, but, I don't know what the original windows were. I know that this was a duplex at one time. So, once you start, especially on the sides, you're going to have like a bunch of little pieces. So, to
Not
the
awesome.
extent possible kind of comes in to that part,
Mm-hmm. I've seen siding in worse shape, I guess, and in terms of cracking and some of the other things that the applicant has presented. I think between, is it new? No, but in terms of siding prep to caulk and do what you would expect on a house that had this age on it, it doesn't seem that it rises above and beyond. Now, the fact that old openings were resized and you might have to rip, 4 1/4 inches on one side, and then the other's going to be 6 1/2 to match up to the siding, or else that's going to look funny. And then if you're trying to put a little 3/4 inch piece of siding in there, that won't hunt.
I agree with that.
Is sort of what I think I'm seeing here is that there's a lot of the devil might be in the details of this. I would think it would be less expensive in a rehab to take off a lot less of the siding, but, I'm not there, and so I couldn't say. But I do know that it doesn't seem like it's in terrible shape, what's remained, but there are some of these other things that just are going to be hard to lace back in there from a constructability standpoint. I don't know what other commissioners see or.
I would think that's accurate
Yeah.
from having been there.
So I'll just say I drive by this house because it's in my neighborhood fairly frequently, and in person, it sounds a little silly, I suppose, but in person, it looks, and I will, the caveat, I did not get out of my car, but I did slow down, stop in front of the house and look. So much of it is gone in so many strange places that piecing this in will be, I mean, I'm all for saving everything that can be saved, but I don't know. I mean, it's, in person, it was more stark even than in these pictures, I suppose. So I understand the request. I really do. That's all I really have to contribute. But.
When I look at this house and look at the character defining elements, those mitered corners are a huge aspect of that. And certainly the trim and the treatment around the windows needs to replicate the historic look, not the vinyl or aluminum siding look that was on it. And so, and while it's probably possible to get this siding back, whether you scrape it and paint it or whatever, it has that old look. And, some of the places I've done, I sort of like that. And some of the clients I've had, they like that old look of scraped and painted and the historic texture of that original wall. However, not everybody finds that aesthetic something that's pleasing. I think that, to me, what's really important on this one is the mitered corners. And you don't get that with a standard hardy plank. It's just, I've worked with that stuff. It doesn't like to get into an angle like that. Hardy and other companies do offer product that does produce a mitered corner. So, I think for me, I would not object to full replacement if we're able to specify that the material used and the detailing be done so that you replicate the mitered corners that are such a character defining part of this house.
So if that were the case, Hardy's 3/16 thickness. I don't know that, maybe I'll look a little closer, but I don't think this mitered corner has that thin of a reveal, so it would need to be a product that was specifically made for a mitered corner instead of something that was sort of field cut.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And they do make those products, but it's not the standard hardy plank.
Sure. So, Commissioner Price, I'm curious your thoughts on this one, because I've seen siding in worse condition be preserved.
Yeah, on my own house was pretty bad. So I do want to encourage anybody who might be listening to, if you buy a house in an old neighborhood, and it sounds like you have experience. I mean, when I bought my house, I lifted up the vinyl to see if the original siding was there, and I saw, oh, it's there. So one day I'll be able to pull this siding off and restore it, which is what I did. And it wasn't easy, and I'm one of the guys who likes the old funky siding that's been repaired. It's a historic old growth wood. It's not actually rotten. It was just, there was cracks and pieces missing, but in my opinion, it's just my preference that I like the old stuff, so I repaired it. But in this case, I can see both sides, especially since so much of it's already been pulled off. And I know we have discussed and approved these kinds of cases in the past, as long as the new, the rehabilitated version of the house matches whatever character defining features we're talking about, which is the mitered corner. So if it's possible and the applicant is committed to doing that, then I could be persuaded to vote in favor of it. But again, I like the historic stuff. And I think it could be done in this case. I think it could be. And I think a homeowner would appreciate a historic house that actually looks historic versus all new materials.
Commissioner Price, and I'm in agreement that I think I'd maybe try to save the money and keep what's there and do the hard work of lacing it in myself. But as the staff's recommendation is written, to the extent possible, is relative to the removal and patching in these areas at the applicant's, I would say discretion, but, you've got to fill in these spots and do the things. So I feel like as it's written, allows for the best possible outcome, maybe. My thought.
So what you're saying is you like the staff recommendation, would like to vote for that? Okay.
So when you're saying to the extent possible, are you saying that if it's determined it's not possible, that the original not be used?
I think we've had the staff speak on that one, so I dare not venture down that path.
Okay. Commissioner Cotton?
I was going to say, it's in there. The minor corners, I suppose, are in there.
So, motion from anyone?
Quick question before someone does this. So we're okay with the and vagueness is not the appropriate word, but the flexibility in the recommendation as is.
I think it doesn't give a great amount of clarity to either the applicant or the staff, but that's.
That was my. I mean, I would just think under the current, and I'm actually okay with it, under the current recommendation, because.
Can I make another statement? I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. Can he say that again? There's a half-inch.
A hardy artisan that is a thicker, made for mitered corners. I'd be happy to replace it all with that, because it will be impossible to miter the regular hardy plank.
From what I think I remember, Artisan is
It's the one, yep.
is the one that they advertise is able to achieve a later period mitered corner look,
Right.
from my recollection.
Yeah. So with that, do we have a motion?
With respect to 1015 South Douglas Avenue, I move approval with the staff's recommendation.
Does that give sufficient clarity to the staff? Does it? Okay. Do we hear a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, the next case is 1901 Linden Avenue. The house at 1901 Linden is a circa 1915 Georgian-style house that contributes to the historic character of the Belmont Hillsborough Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. The property includes an existing non-contributing outbuilding in the rear yard that was constructed prior to the overlay. The applicant would now like to construct an addition to that existing outbuilding, and that existing outbuilding is shown there by the red arrow in that aerial shot. The applicant's site plan is shown on this screen. This lot is 20,809 square feet. Therefore, the total outbuilding footprint should not exceed 1,000 square feet. The existing outbuilding has a footprint of 490 square feet, and the proposed addition has a footprint of 830 square feet. Therefore, the total outbuilding footprint of the existing outbuilding and proposed addition would be 1,320 square feet. This exceeds the 1,000 square foot maximum footprint for this lot. Therefore, staff finds that the proposed footprint does not meet the design guidelines. Additionally, the proposed outbuilding addition does not meet the right side setback. The right side setback is there at the top of the screen on this slide. The existing outbuilding is located over 70 feet from the left side property line at the bottom of the slide there, but it is located on the right side property line. The applicant proposes aligning the outbuilding addition with the existing outbuilding, which would require the outbuilding addition to also be located on the property line. Staff finds that this does not meet the design guidelines. Staff finds that even though the existing outbuilding is located on the property line, any addition to the existing outbuilding should meet all setback requirements since the building would be increasing in size and there is room to extend an addition into the interior of the lot. Therefore, staff finds that the outbuilding addition should be located at least 5 feet from the right side property line. The outbuilding addition will meet the other setback requirements. The elevations for the outbuilding addition are shown on this screen, and staff finds that the outbuilding addition meets the design guidelines for height, character and form, and materials. So staff is recommending approval of the outbuilding addition with the conditions shown on the screen. And 1 and 2 are the two most important there, that the outbuilding addition footprint should be reduced so that the total outbuilding footprint does not exceed 1,000 square feet. And that the outbuilding addition should be located at least 5 feet from the right side property line. Conditions 3 through 5 are just the standard conditions for outbuildings, so I won't read through all of those unless there are questions. So with those 5 conditions, staff finds that the proposed outbuilding addition meets the design guidelines for the Belmont Hillsborough Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. And happy to take questions. The applicant is here as well.
Any questions? Okay. Applicant, would you like to come forward? You'll state your name, please.
My name is Lee Gordon. I'm the homeowner, and I appreciate the thoughtful review and listening to this. I also came with Greg Withdrawal, who's the contractor for this. So as mentioned, there's an existing outbuilding, which is a stone building. The house itself is stone, and we're very interested in preserving that existing historic outbuilding. Problem with it is it's not terribly functional, I guess, because it was built, I think, as best we can tell, at the same time as the main, yeah, as the house. We'd like to increase the functionality of that, make this building that's proposed as separate from the existing outbuilding. So we preserve that, which in my calculation, the existing building is 472 square feet of footprint. And then the, I think there was confusion, my mistake, between Metro's guidelines and Historic's guidelines about this total square footage of 1,000 square feet versus what I think Metro allows is, you obviously know better than I do, 2,500 in an outbuilding on a lot that size. So that was my mistake. We can reduce the size of the overall outbuilding. But the idea is that the entire building sits behind the existing outbuilding. It opens into the alley and allows us to take vehicles off the street, park them through the alley access there. So, and it allows us to preserve the existing outbuilding. The total square footage, if we reduce it to the plan, when we realized that error after you had seen this, my apologies, would reduce the square footage of the two outbuildings to just 42 square feet over 1,000, so 1,142. So the existing outbuilding, we said is 470 square feet, and a proposal would be for a 670 square foot additional outbuilding, all directly behind the existing building, so in terms of line of sight. And then what was brought up related to the offset from the side, it is true that the existing building is on the property line. That's just from 1915-ish. By aligning that, it kept the proposal completely behind the existing outbuilding, so it wasn't visible from the front. We could move that in if that's deemed necessary. Perhaps there's a way to compromise by instead of bringing it in 5 feet, bringing it in 2 feet. It would jog the building slightly out, but it's in keeping with the existing building and in keeping with the house and materials and so forth. So I'd let Greg speak to something if he'd like. Like I said, we are in the redrawn plan that would put the square footage, each one well under 1,000, but the cumulative footprint is admittedly about 142 square feet over the total of 1,000. I'm happy to try to take questions. Again, we're interested in preserving the historic existing structure and not demolishing that as part of this.
Just a quick question. To be clear, though, you're willing to reduce the overall footprint?
We could reduce the overall footprint. I admit, I was sifting through guidelines. I'm a bit new to this.
Okay.
So I think we had a misunderstanding of that was submitted to you. So if we reduce the dimensions of the proposed structure, what would accomplish, I think we could accomplish what we're hoping to in this additional outbuilding, and it would be a building of 672 square feet, in addition to the 470 square feet of the existing historic structure. Does that help answer?
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
So we've looked at a lot of different codes with the internet. They're looking at things, and we're seeing things where they have something on it, but where you can get a little bit closer to the property line. We're trying to. He's wanting to get 3 cars in there. He's got a couple of antique cars he's trying to fit in there, and I'm reminded when I build a set of stairs at an old house, you've got so much height and so much run, and you're kind of pushing both ways. So what we're basically trying to do is see how much we can get closer to the property line, and then try to see. We're trying to get that 28-foot wide somewhere around there, and where we can get 3 cars in there. So I think if we do 22 by 28, that puts us at. I think that's the one he's talking.
28 is
1150 by
142.
Yeah, basically a little under 1150, and so we're trying to see what we can get. Basically, what we can get on the offset on the property line onto the building, and then try to get what the customer wants and try to make everybody as happy as we possibly can. I don't think anybody's going to get everything, so that's basically it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you're done, I'm just going to say something about that.
Would you provide your name before you go?
I'm sorry, it's Greg Bridwell.
Thank you.
Yes.
I thought maybe it would help to describe, because vis-a-vis the property line, that back area vis-a-vis the neighbor who we're very close friends with, is a thick stand of bamboo and trees. So there's no building that's close to, there's no structure except for a very thick area of bamboo. So in terms of the distance from that bamboo, if we didn't follow the existing line, perhaps compromising on the distance there to 2 feet instead of 5 feet would help to. But I know that it's not obvious what's immediately adjacent.
Can you clear, as submitted, the width on this drawing, the width of the garage is 28?
That's 28 by
Okay.
28.
28 by 28, okay, thanks.
So we were just talking about reducing to the 28 to 20 and by 24.
In the depth.
Yes, sir.
So you'd get a little bit further off the alley, and the proximity to the existing building would be your preference? So it'd go shorter, bumpers be a little bit closer to the back and the front of the garage?
And they're kind of separated structures. And,
Got it.
So it wouldn't, yeah.
You don't want to get more space between the structures, you want to come back from the alley a bit?
We could do
Either way.
more we would have the 10-foot offset from the alley, of course.
Sure.
But a little more distance between the buildings is fine.
Sure. I don't
Yeah,
want to get that clip far in
that'd
your
be fine.
business,
The
but
24, we could make it up that way.
I'll say that 3 feet in a residential, just zoning wise, is a pretty magic number just for fire code and some of those other things. And two less so, 3 is any less than that, and you start to get into other issues that you may not, avenues you may not want to go down. But thank you for the clarification on the dimensions.
Do you have any questions? Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Open public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this project? Closed public hearing. Commissioners?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 1,000 square feet, even the second number that they gave us was over 1,000 square feet total. And I think that's, kind of codified in what's allowed. So that's something to think about. And then, I know the current outbuilding sits right on that property line, but then adding more that's also sitting right on the property, I don't know if that's the solution either. So just those are the things that I'm thinking about at the moment of just, I like that it's obviously behind the current, building, but it's in the back, but making something just because it's already there and then adding more that's not in compliance currently. I don't know if that's the solution either. I know they said they might be willing to have a couple feet, but like you said, the 3 feet might be it. So I don't, know. I don't want to be the one to judge on that, but yeah, those are just the things that I'm thinking about on this one. I mean, yeah. I don't know.
I'm not advocating for this, but I'm asking the question maybe among staff. Certainly 1,000 square feet codified, and we've had a lot of folks in this historic neighborhood and others appear about the ballooning size of outbuildings. I think this, if in looking at the application, it's a single story. We are dealing with, oftentimes we're not dealing with a historic outbuilding that is not, there's a very minimal connection to it. Were the circumstances different in any way, and I'm accepting the conversation about the setback in these comments, were those things not true? This one is pretty easily a no for me, but is there a way through this, because the historic outbuilding is being preserved so that if this were removed, it would be whole? Is that an avenue for us to grant in these particular circumstances what amounts to a little bit over 10% to 10 to 12% variance on the size, just to move the conversation along? I'm curious others' thoughts.
Well, and the staff report says it's a non-contributing. Yeah, it's not a historic building.
In that case, that comment's for withdrawal.
It just seems like the applicant would have a lot easier just to remove the original non-contributing building and build a 3-car garage that's 1,000 square feet. That's 5 feet off. There's plenty of room in the backyard to do that. Also, in the discussion, the applicant's presentation, there were a lot of numbers thrown around, some revisions. I mean, if they want to bring in a revised plan, we need to see it in plans. So as it is, I do think that we tend to not generally approve applications to take a non-conforming building and make it even more non-conforming. We've not really done that before. And in this case, I don't think we should start now. So I support the staff recommendation, I think, at this point. But if there is some sort of revision that, we invite a revised application that's more in line with what the same standards that all of your neighbors are held to also for these kinds of things. then we would review that too.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I just am confused about the idea it's a non-conforming or non-contributing building. It's the same era of the house built with the same materials. It's a rock building.
Because that's what's written in the staff recommendation, and I don't know that we were given any data of exactly when it was built, or I don't even think we have any photos of it.
Yeah, we had it down as a non-historic outbuilding. Yeah.
I guess in some ways the premise of this whole project is that it is a historic outbuilding.
I describe it as a carriage house. It has that feel.
It was clearly a carriage house. The original carriage doors aren't present anymore, but that's clearly what it was. And like I said, that's kind of the premise of preserving this outbuilding in this whole project. Otherwise, just tearing everything down and putting in 1,000 square feet of modern stuff like going up all over the neighborhood. We're very interested in preserving it.
And I think everyone really appreciates that. Thank you for that. And it was just an idea. He wasn't saying that that's his motion. So that's not what you have to do. It was just deliberation.
So is it possible, if we're talking about not turning it down, to give us a little bit, can you say we can do 3 feet and then we can work on those numbers and come back so we will know where we are, and so we have some a little bit more room about knowing what we're looking at to draw up?
That's what we're working on. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get that for you.
So it sounds like, for clarity, this outbuilding does not appear on the Sanborn map as far as any research to the residents is concerned.
We can look into it again, but I mean, of course, he does not have to demolish the outbuilding, and he's got plenty of space to build a large addition
Understood.
to it.
I think that I was trying to find a way for some leniency on the 1,000, but I certainly support Commissioner Price's, guidelines are there for a reason, and making special, there need to be extenuating circumstances for any special consideration. At least that's typically how we would evaluate and do something that was outside of the guidelines.
May I make a suggestion? It sounds like everyone, and based on past decisions, you'd be comfortable with a 3-foot side setback. And then if we did that additional research and found that it was historic, what amount of additional square footage would you allow for the whole? And if you feel comfortable with that, then it could be something that we could work out with them and issue administratively and not bring it back, if you're comfortable with that.
That'd be great. Thanks for bringing that forward. When I look at it, the plans say that the existing is 490 square feet. And if they go to the 22 by 28, that's another 616. So that's 1106 is what I come up with. So, in adding those two together. Doesn't include the connector, whatever the size of the connector is between there. But and Robin, are we empowered to exceed the code maximum square footage?
Yes, that is your new
As
purview.
Okay.
I was making that, again, because we rarely see historic outbuildings that are preserved. That would be the extenuating circumstance in my mind to allow an overage of what amounts to 10%. And certainly the setback, as Ziegler pointed out, at 3 feet is the right number there in terms of just what's sensible from the standpoint of constructability, spread of fire, things like that.
I'd invite a motion from you.
Actually, I would say I'll move approval of the proposed outbuilding under the following conditions: that additional research into the nature of the existing outbuilding be done by the staff. That building is deemed to be historic, that that a garage of 28 by 22, those were the dimensions we came up would be with acceptable and meeting the guidelines that would result in just over 1,100 square foot total outbuilding size, and that it be no less than 3 feet from the side setback, and the additional conditions presented, accepting number 1 and 2.
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Price. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else to say?
So Commissioner Mosley, if we were not doing this as voluntary work, we'd have to increase your salary for your efforts today.
Hardly.
Okay, moving on to items pulled from consent. First, we have 116 South 13th Street. This is the final infill at the former East End United Methodist Church. You guys have approved 3 other infill houses at this site. This is the one on the corner there, 116. We had this on consent with a couple conditions. One of those conditions was that the long dormer you see on this elevation be broken up into smaller dormers that are no wider than 10 feet. The applicant has asked if they could have those dormers be 11 feet. We felt like that was appropriate, but since we had already written it at 10, we couldn't just not bring it before you to make that change. So we're here to ask that we recommend approval with that slight adjustment that for condition 1, it be 11 feet rather than the 10 feet showing in your report. So that's all on this one. The applicant is here, but I think he's happy to not speak unless you have questions for him.
Okay, good. So any questions? No. Open public hearing, closed public hearing. Commissioners?
No models.
What?
No models.
No models.
Keep setting expectations.
We demand a model.
So seeing no further discussion forthcoming, I would recommend approval with the staff's revised recommendation for number 1, that we approve 116 South 13th Street with the 4 conditions. Revised number 1 condition as submitted.
Here's the second by Commissioner Cotton. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Right. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have 2 more that were pulled from consent. I did not have a chance to prepare presentations, but I'm going to try and get you some visuals. Just bear with me a second. I think I can make this work. Maybe. Are there any teenagers in the room?
Teenager at heart.
Should just plug right in here.
Sometimes in my head.
Who normally does this and how? It's like, it moves, but. Isn't that one? It doesn't go there. That's what this one looks like.
This one is on the other side. It goes in here. See, I'm 4 months younger than you, so.
Here we go, we did it. It was a younger person who made it work.
I've always been advised if you turn it off and turn it back on again, it'll work.
Okay, thank you. So we are going on to 824 South Douglas Avenue, sorry. We had this one on consent. Like I said, I didn't have a chance for a presentation, so I'm just going to kind of scroll you through. Sorry, I hope I don't make anyone too dizzy. We're going to look through the staff report here. So this is a historic house in Waverly, Belmont neighborhood conservation zoning overlay. It sits on an irregular shaped lot that's a little wide for the context. The applicant is proposing a wider addition on that side street elevation. And the wider rear addition is just 1 story wider and meets the guidelines. My understanding is that is not why it has been pulled from consent. So here's the historic house as seen from the corner. Here is the addition on the interior property line. You can even see my cursor. So here's the historic house here. Here's the addition. Staff found it was appropriate. It steps lower than the historic house. And as you can see on the site plan, sorry, I know this isn't ideal. It's also inset that 5 feet to the required setback. The house itself crosses the 5 feet, but that is existing. The addition will fully inset for that 5 feet. So it does meet all of the required setbacks. And so staff was recommending approval just with the standard conditions regarding materials and utilities. I know the applicant is here. I don't know if they would like to speak.
My name is Martin Wick. I don't necessarily have too much to add. I kind of wanted to make sure I had like rebuttal time for whatever the neighbors' comments are. But you know, we've worked with staff members on this from the very beginning because it is a little bit larger. We were making sure we were kind of talking through the massing and everything, making sure we were meeting since we were over the setback, making sure how we needed to step back as we did our addition, and we were on consent. So I think we're happy with the design, and I just want to save some rebuttal time for whatever the comments might be.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Wick. Open public hearing. Someone wish to speak on this project?
Got some handouts. Hang on, yeah. Give those up. Only got 8 of them. Oh, yeah. My name is Regan Costello, and my wife has so patiently been back here, Allison Costello, waiting with me. We live directly next door to the Simmons in 822 South Douglas Avenue. And you can see on that front picture, I've got it, and she showed it a second ago, kind of the 4 houses on that block. We've got 4 young boys. We've been there for 15 years. Our boys are 6, 8, 10, and 12. And we hope to be there for 15 more years. And, you know, we're very excited for the Simmons to be our neighbors. I want that to be very clear. We're excited about the improvements that they're making. For so long, we were one of 4 on the block that owned the house, but lived in it and nobody else did. Everybody else rented. So it's nice to see that people are, you know, taking ownership and doing some great improvements. Our concern, and the reason we're here, is the scale they're seeking as the addition extending off the back of the house will overshadow our property. Our historic property line, at no fault of our own, is a foot away from their house. Their addition would be so overtowering in its height and closeness to our backyard living area, we feel it would be a major loss of privacy for our family, as well as becoming a massive light blocking wall, only being 6 feet or less off our property line. And as our property line goes towards the back, it gets closer to the Simmons, just kind of how it goes. That's where we spend most of our time, is in the backyard with these kids. They want to be back there, and we just feel like it's just going to be very large. And we know what you know, they're doing here is a side step back. That's a big part of it. And we're okay with that if we could, you know, our request would be to reduce the height of the addition, which is overshadowing our property and ultimately impacting our young family's privacy. I've given some screenshots of our house. The first 2 pictures are about our house. And then on the other corner, the last 3 pictures is what the other corner did. In comparison. So in closing, the argument we are making is that they're gaining more square footage by stepping off to the side, which we are okay with, since it is generally unfavorable to have an addition outside the side. They are getting a side extension, which is giving them more space, so they shouldn't also get the height. We ask that if you decide to approve this proposition, that it be approved based on reasonable reduction to the height of the back addition. That's it.
Thanks, Mr. Cassell.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Let me close
Oh,
public
yeah,
hearing
sorry.
first. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, close public hearing, now you can.
I guess the only thing I have to say to that is, I mean, we're meeting the guidelines. We're allowed to be this tall with the addition. We're taller, or we're shorter than the existing house by several feet. We didn't even, technically could have gone taller to meet the guidelines. I was looking at the site plan the other day, and the lot next to us, their driveway is on the side next to this house, so their house is already sort of further than a typical kind of block spacing might have. And then the property lines actually angle a little bit so that I think that two houses are actually slightly skewed to each other. So in reality, our house is kind of, for a city block, our house the Simmons house is already further away than a typical lot might even have, because of these extenuating circumstances with the angles and the driveway. We're designing what they're asking for. It's not even the maximum size for an addition in this neighborhood. I'm not sure that it's hard telling a neighbor that it kind of is what it is, but living in a city like this, you look at the lots across the street. I mean, you can see in that site plan, this part of the reason that you live in a historic neighborhood is so that your lot isn't completely filled like the townhomes and apartment blocks that are right across the street. This is a pretty reasonable sized addition for this neighborhood. I don't really see any reason for it to need to be shorter since we are meeting the guidelines. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioners? Yeah, we closed public hearing. Yeah, we did.
I will just say, you're all my neighbors, because I live right around the corner from you all in Elliott, and I enjoy your holiday decorations very much. But one thing that drives me crazy in our neighborhood is my house is also built directly on a lot line. And so I understand the frustration. I don't know that we have any purview here or any leeway to deny this since it meets the guidelines. So I don't, from my perspective, I understand the concerns, but I don't think there's anything we can do here.
Is there a motion?
I got to say, I think you're right. I mean, the design guidelines have been met. It's an unfortunate situation. But everybody's house deserves a chance to grow if it meets the rules, and I'm sorry.
I guess they're going to make me do this one. In regards to, let me put my glasses back on. 824 South Douglas Avenue. I move that we follow the staff recommendations. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cashin. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and I think this is last, 1514 Forest Avenue. This is a non-contributing house in Lockland Springs East End Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. It's actually a little overgrown, so I wasn't able to get a good photo, but staff has issued an administrative permit for the demolition of the existing house. Staff found the proposed design to be appropriate in terms of height, width, and general massing. Staff does recommend that the side dormers be inset 2 feet from the walls below, as we always do. Staff found that the design meets the guidelines for setbacks. And I wanted to show you, here are some of the houses in the context. And then one of the other conditions we had was that dormers should not extend proud of the roof. And I just wanted to show you quickly, since this one got pulled, what we were talking about there. So here's the rear elevation, and they're showing here their dormer is extending beyond that primary side gable. So we were just asking that that be pulled back to not extend. The applicant has actually already submitted revisions that meet these conditions regarding the dormers, and we'd also asked for capitals on the porch posts. So they have submitted revisions that meet those conditions. So staff would recommend approval with the conditions you see on your screen. As I said, they have already submitted plans that meet conditions 1 through 3, so that just leaves our standard conditions with materials and utilities. But we did have someone ask to pull it. I actually don't think the applicant is here. No, the applicant is not here, but we do have public comment.
Okay, good. Okay, open public hearing.
Jonathan French. The house in question belonged to my mother, who just passed November the 7th. The house is actually in legal matters anyways right now, so I don't see how anything for as zoning or can occur when it's in legal matters.
And my name is Archie French. Good afternoon. Same thing, I think at the time it was a conservator that was in charge of that and had talked about those plans right there. The judge at the time, Amanda McClendon, 506, I think is her courtroom, she gave the house back to us, and the conservator's not supposed to be part of that. And at the time, what was that? That's all we have to say. I mean, I don't even know who this person is or anything. It's supposed to be ours. It's not supposed to be anybody else's house.
So we're so sorry for your loss. Legal, would you like to weigh in on this one?
I was gonna say, I may need to do a little bit more research on this. I wasn't aware of this ownership issue, but it may impact whether the application is valid. Could you give us a little bit of time
Sure,
to
absolutely.
talk?
Yeah, so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
else neighbor lives a couple blocks away.
On Evander, yeah, I know Evander. I went to Lockwood. I was gonna say, we've been there, for, what, 20 years?
No,
48 years,
47, 48 years.
This is a first that I remember that this kind of question, that y'all's question has come up before us, so yeah, just give us a minute.
Okay.
On our house down in Franklin, and we found a deed. Nobody knew how old it was. It had been used as a triplex for 50 years, divided up and used as triplex. We found a deed for sale in 1896 that described the house as old and in poor condition. And we ultimately, working with Rick Warwick down there, did back.
So after talking to staff, it sounds like there may be insufficient data on this application, so I would recommend a deferral, maybe for one meeting.
Okay, that'd be good. Okay, so do I have a motion for deferral?
Are we allowed to do, I thought the applicant.
You can defer, the clock starts when you have sufficient data.
Yeah, but we take a risk, but there's no risk because we don't have sufficient data.
Correct.
First time for everything. We brought this up in our working session. Chair, just point of order, I don't think we have, as council has pointed out, we don't have sufficient data to be able to even hear or rule on this based on our rules. And so,
I will
move
just
for deferral.
I'll
Yes.
add one thing. I just looked on Metro Parcel Viewer, and it is still in the French's name. So, for whatever that's worth at this point.
Okay. So a motion, is that? So move for deferral, a second from Commissioner Williams. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That means we don't take action today. It gives you time to work through the legal processes, and until they have clear ownership of the property, then they can't come back to us.
Okay, do I need to step back up here?
No, you don't need to do anything else. It's,
Do I need to go to court and get that from the judge because she gave it to us? That you had before you, that was originally what they wanted to do, but the court, what they said,
So I will reach out to the applicant and let them know that there's, I do, and I'll let them know that there's a legal issue with ownership and that we cannot proceed. Yeah, I can talk to you about it. I'm getting his information, and so I'll reach out once I speak to them, and we'll try and figure out where to go from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Ms.
Shall we
Siegel?
move on to the rules of order revision?
Yes, that'd be good.
So just a quick summary of what it entails. Some of it is just housekeeping type stuff, dealing with the fact that we're in a different department now, and so just changing names and addresses and that type of thing. We've added that the chair can vote, which is something you've talked about for several months, and so that's in here now. We added,
And that the chair can discuss.
yes,
All right.
deliberate and vote. Metro Legal has added some additional information in terms of conflicts of interest. We removed the meeting cancellation deadline of 24, I think it was 24 hours, because sometimes we may not know 24 hours in advance. It's never happened yet, and I shouldn't have said that, because now it will. But yeah, for years and years and years, you have always met every month. We've added telecommunication facilities to the list of administratively approvable permits, which is not taking anything away from you because there's very little that Metro can say about telecommunication towers. So, and it's only for properties that are within the overlay or within street bounding the overlay. And we added the ability for staff to provide a termination of effect to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So there's a code that says if there is a special exception request for historic property, you have the ability to give some comment on how that project affects the historic feature or the historic building or site. That rarely comes up, so we thought that might be easiest just to give to staff since it's not a decision, it's just a comment. Mm-hmm.
Give me examples. I made a note to ask, what is a special exception? Has it ever happened?
Hasn't happened yet. Most of the special exceptions are dealing with use or things like fences, things that we don't weigh in on. And the last one is, I'll let Hannah take this over, adding a section for public hearing, and I'll let her explain what that means.
So a couple years ago, the state added or passed a law that requires a public comment period be held at all public meetings. At first, Metro Legal had the opinion that if public hearings were held, that could count as the public comment period. But after some revision to the state law, some additional kind of thought, we've determined that a set public comment period is more appropriate under the state law. So we have a recommendation. It's based off of a few other public comment periods for other boards and commissions, including the Planning Commission, but it can be tailored to your needs. You can have a time limit, a limit on the number of participants, a limitation on whether individuals can speak on items that have public hearings. There's a proposal in these rules, but if you would like to discuss that further, we can revise the public comment period more before you approve that.
And I'd recommend that we do that because in some cases, like in the council meetings, people can get up and talk about almost anything. But I think here, if we're having a public hearing on a project, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for someone to get up in a public comment period on a project that hasn't been presented by the staff and that hasn't been presented by the applicant.
And it wouldn't allow for that, just to be clear. It would really only allow for public hearing for things that don't already have a public hearing as part of your agenda. So for this agenda, it would be the rules.
Okay.
There's very few things that you don't have a public hearing about.
Because we wouldn't comment anyway, it's just a public hearing.
Right.
I mean, there's public comment, there's no response required back from us, right?
Right.
Okay.
So did you want to keep that into the current draft? Or talk about it some more?
If they can't double dip,
Right.
I think that's okay.
I think it's okay.
And we'll work on some kind of script at the beginning, because I think it'll be confusing. Like, I think people will will either want to speak at the beginning so they can leave early, or they'll not understand that they're just, anyway, we'll work out the script for that with Hannah.
And I think a limitation on time as well, so.
Yeah, like not just 20 minutes, but within the 20 minutes, people's max time is 2 or whatever, right?
Well, this is saying that there's 20 minutes total and not regulating the number of people. But what I understand is you could regulate number of people instead of time if you wanted
Right,
to.
so as it's currently written, it's a limitation of 20 minutes with 2 minutes per speaker. But if somebody used 1 minute, it might allow for an additional speaker at the end or a couple speakers at the end, as long as it's within that 20-minute total. You could instead say 10 speakers with a limit of 2 minutes per speaker. There's a lot of different iterations that this could have.
I think the way it's written with 20 minutes maximum, and if we have 2 minutes per speaker, that, I doubt that we'll ever fill that 20 minutes, but I think that having that, so, good, excellent. So do you want us to vote on that today, or should we vote on it next week, next month, or what?
If you're ready to vote on it today, I think that would be helpful, especially for some of the changes that, all the changes for the names. But if there's pieces of it you're not ready, we can take those out and vote on the rest, however you want to do it.
Sure. Any thoughts? I don't know how many people got to look at it. It was in the packet that went out, so.
I read it and had no issues. It's fine. I wondered about telecommunication facilities, that's cell towers, right? And we never look at those.
And Metro has very little authority over it anyway, so
I remember when they
it's
put them in
a
5
token.
points and it was like,
Yeah.
okay.
So a question about that, though, is if they're mounted on a historic building, would that be under our purview to weigh in on that?
It would be, however, since they can do whatever they want within public right-of-ways, they're not trying to attach to buildings like they used to. So there used to be kind of an advantage, like a church could sell off some space in their steeple, and they don't have to do that anymore because they get the public space for free, so that's just what they do.
Okay, good, okay.
Hannah, is there anything of note, and I apologize for not reading the particular part, but in the conflict of interest section, is there anything we should know or you feel like we should know?
Let me get that language.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was referenced, but I didn't make the effort to.
I think it's a pretty small change. It adds this language. Some issues do not rise to the level of an actual conflict. In those cases, a member shall disclose the nature of the conflict and briefly state whether he or she can be unbiased and will participate. The Department of Law will provide guidance on these issues.
Oh, good,
Which is
excellent.
pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think it's just making explicit kind of what the practice is already.
So do I have somebody other than Commissioner Mosley willing to make a motion?
Chair, I move to approve the changes to the rules of order.
Excellent. Second by Commissioner Cashin. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Are we adjourned?
We are.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, one quick thing. Was there any, we do have this as new, so I forgot about it. Matt's not here, so there is no planning commission report. And Caitlin is gone. Is there a DTC report? Not to put you on the spot. I mean, imagine most of the time we won't have reports, but we just
There-
wanted this here.
There is no report. We did hear a case that had some bearing on a historic asset, and we did the best that we could. Which wasn't bad, but at the end of the day, yeah, we did the best that we could. Is that right, Melissa? Would you say we did the best that we could? Great. So that's my report.
Okay. We stand adjourned. Thanks.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.
It makes us easy.